Welcome to the Brain Standard Podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Bradley, where I teach you how to change your brain, protect your future, and be a part of the generation that is going to end dementia and Alzheimer's. Before we start your podcast, I need to let you know that you can protect your brain. You can reverse cognitive decline. It is much simpler than you may think. Now, let's jump right in. I'm so glad you found this podcast because I'm creating a tribe of people who not only want to protect their brains, but actively fight against dementia and Alzheimer's. And this is what you're going to do. Today's episode is all about your psychology, why people are so terrified of their own brain health, why I see so many people curious about it, but not making the right shifts at the right time for themselves. And we're going to talk a little bit about why you need to change your perspective to clear the anxiety you have about dementia and Alzheimer's, because I see it far too often, this cloud of anxiety that overwhelms people that have watched their own parent decline. Now, before we get into everything, I need to introduce myself a little bit because there may be a few people that haven't met me before. My name is Tyler Bradley. I'm a brain health coach certified in functional nutrition and the Recode 2.0 protocol by Dr. Dale Bredesen. I started doing this because my mom was diagnosed with early onset dementia at only 57 years old. Now, 5 years into her diagnosis, I help take care of her. I see the toll it takes on her and everybody around, and I'm making it my mission to not only help as many people as possible protect themselves, but in dementia and Alzheimer's, reduce the numbers in the next 25 years. I hope you can feel the passion that I have for helping people take control of their own brain, because I want to be the help that my mom never had. Now, talking about what we were going to actually cover. First, I'm going to talk through what you may be feeling right now and why it's okay to feel that fear and anxiety that you have for your brain. Then you and I will talk a little bit about what I felt when my mom was actually diagnosed, so that you can see from my perspective that I have this inner working, this self-awareness around my own brain. And then finally, we'll talk about why you must shift your perspective in order to deal with your brain health, heal your brain, and actually change your outcome for the future. And it's probably going to make you uncomfortable, but that is going to move you forward, and I promise you that. Right now, you're probably thinking a few different things about your own brain. You may be taking care of your parent currently. They may live in your house. You may go over there every day and help take care of them. Maybe you aren't currently taking care of a parent with dementia, or maybe you did and now they're in a home somewhere, or they've since passed on. Whatever it is, you've likely seen the nature of this disease. And the nature of the disease is overwhelming. It's frustration, it's confusion, it's this delusion that you forget who your parent used to be or who they are. You see them decline and disappear in front of your eyes, instead of typically they pass away and you deal with the grief for a while, but you remember them how they are. And in your current state, you might have grieved them while they were still alive, because you kind of lost this part of your life that was so vital to your growing up before they ever actually passed. And for me personally, I know that's what I'm currently going through. Is I have trouble remembering what my mom used to be like, and I need to work through that and grieve that before she passes away, and there's grief all over again. That is the nature of this disease. It is frustrating. It is sad. It is angry. And naturally, there is fear and worry. There's anxiety that it might be genetic or it could happen to you too. And I know how hard it was on you dealing with your parent, or how hard it is, especially as their child, because I am that child who's currently dealing with it. I get it. There's a lot of worry that may stem from allowing it to happen to yourself as well. You're worried that genetics play a big role. Your grandparent had it, your mother had it, and now you think that you're going to get it. There may be this guilt that it's going to happen to you because it happened to them, and your kids are going to have to deal with it, and that's worries you more than anything else. You're afraid that you won't be there long term for your own family, that you won't be sharp and present, that they'll have to take care of you, and this guilt that you feel might be stopping you from thinking too deeply into it, because you don't want to have to worry about that right now, because it's not currently your reality. This is the point where I typically see people run into the biggest issue, which is this area of fear. They're so scared of talking about their brain health. They're so scared of what the future might hold for them, because they've seen what has happened to everybody else that has gotten dementia and Alzheimer's. And they're afraid of talking about the issues that you might be experiencing, the issues that you come up with of fogginess in your head, this lack of ability to focus, fatigue, especially mental fatigue. You're unable to focus. You're unable to stay sharp for your family. You're forgetting little things they tell you day to day. You might be running into memory issues, loss of sleep. All of these are coupled into your brain health. But I will be the voice of reason for you. None of them are necessarily pointing you to losing your brain, at least in this moment. They do point you to something being off, and that's for sure. Something that you can fix, though. And I don't want anybody to deal and live with these symptoms that your brain is slowing down or your body is slowing down. And that is the main premise of why I'm coaching people so that they can take care of their brains now. And I don't, and they point to something that you can fix is the main point of that. I really don't want you to go around thinking that this is just aging. I really don't want you going around thinking that it's inevitable because now you're already experiencing brain fog and mental fatigue and there's nothing you can do about it. You can fix all of these issues. And in fact, you can fix them and feel better now than you did 10 years ago. And I can promise you that. So keep that in mind as we go through this, because that is the most, if you take anything away from this podcast, it's that. That's the most important thing that I want you to take away. It is so, so important for you to understand that you can fix your issues. What I felt whenever my mom was diagnosed, that was 5 years ago now, back in late 20, or maybe it was in 2021. So yeah, because that would be 5 years. So 2021, my parents were talking to me saying that they were going to the neurologist. And I honestly don't remember a ton of between then and when my mom called me and told me she was diagnosed. Maybe because I was in denial, like some of you might be. Maybe it was because I was worried and I didn't want to think about it. I had my own life and I'd been off to college for the last 4 years and now I was starting my own job and everything. And it was like, I didn't want to go back into their life because it felt like a regression. I'm not really sure what that was. But I do distinctly remember the day she called me and told me they think it is dementia. They told me it was dementia because it was devastating. And for you, you might remember that same thing happening to you. Or if you're listening to this and you've been told you have cognitive impairment, that might hit just as hard for you. And that perspective shift that I saw from myself was going from denial to going from, oh, okay, this is real. And I really didn't know what to do. So I still repressed the things I was feeling. And I do distinctly remember that repression. And after that, I didn't go to many of the appointments until later on with my mom, but I would call them and ask, how things were going. And it seemed like they were just kind of crawling through this diagnosis. They were waiting and watching to see what the neurologist was going to tell them. And they were saying, well, we're going to the best neurologist in the state and in the area. And I always had this doubt that what they were doing was the best opportunity and the best route to taking care of themselves and taking care of her. And in my opinion now, after being at the appointments and things, I was 100% correct. This standard of care that you see in the neurology field is what holds people back, in my opinion. They get diagnosed, maybe they get put in a clinical trial, they get put on a Alzheimer's medication that doesn't really work. And it's this standard of care that has people crawling, going through the motions, and just waiting to see what happens. And that is what I denounce in this new way. And that's why my podcast is called The Brain Standard, because I am trying to change the standard of care. I'm trying to change the standard outcome for Alzheimer's and dementia patients, and for you trying to protect yourself. And so this perspective that I saw from them was the brain's too complex. Nobody understands this disease. We need to wait and see what happens. We need someone to tell us exactly what to do. But the people telling them exactly what to do didn't really know what was going to work. They just do the standard medicine that puts you on medicine and waits and sees what happens. They didn't really even try to put them on any clinical trials for some reason. And I'm not really sure why. I never got to ask. But I saw this perspective in my own mom of being scared, not wanting to tackle things in the ways that I saw, like being really proactive about it, because it is a really scary situation, especially from historical numbers of once people get diagnosed, they don't really come out of it. It's just this slow sentence. But with the science that we have, with the protocols that exist, like Dr. Bredesen's protocol that I am certified in as a coach, you can find the right people to help you along the path. So that should take away fear right there, that even though you might end up with a diagnosis down the line, there is a protocol that is literally reversing cognitive decline, even in people that have an Alzheimer's diagnosis. And so from my perspective, from what I've seen and what I've done, I want that to take away fear for you because it takes away fear for myself. I understand that I have control, that my clients and the patients that are coming to me have control. And that is something that my mom never had. And that because I didn't really learn about it until it was too late for her. And so I saw this perspective of her and my dad of not wanting to or not knowing that they could take control of their own outcomes and leaving it up to the standard of care. But we are on the new brain standard. Listen to the the words that I'm saying and understand that you can change your outcome. There was also this lack of conversation that my parents probably had from either wanting to protect me. For one, I do think that was a big case. They didn't really talk about it or talk about what my mom was going through. And I wish that they had because they probably didn't want me to worry. They probably didn't want me to be scared or start grieving for my mom before it was too bad. And that's fair. I understand that was coming from a place of love. And their their conversations a lot of the time were pushing it under the rug a little bit because they likely didn't want to face, the end stages before they came, which when you talk about your brain and your brain health and the outcomes that you're trying to avoid, that does make you face up to the potential future, and that's scary. And so I do think that they probably didn't talk about it because of those reasons. So there was a lack of conversation, which takes me to kind of the big point and the biggest mistake I don't want you to make. And that is the lack of conversation, the lack of coming to terms with what is going on. That is the biggest mistake that I don't want you to make. And so ignoring your brain health because it scares you is kind of the massive point that I want to get to. I guarantee it's not as complicated as you think. Your brain is not as complicated. Just go watch any of my videos on my YouTube channel that breaks down food or whatever it may be and how it implements healing and protection into your brain. It is not complicated. So ignoring these symptoms that you're experiencing of the fogginess, of the lack of sleep, of the fatigue, that is going to set you on a path down, feeling worse and worse and worse until it is a diagnosis because you're scared of approaching your own brain health in these really easy to follow ways. I feel like people come to me wanting to learn more and asking questions about, how does, I feel this way. What should I do? But then when I start asking them the questions about their brain, they start getting vague. They start getting standoffish. Not everybody, but a lot of people. And I know it instantly that they're more anxious about their outcomes. And when I start talking about what they want the future to look like or what they're scared of, they get afraid. They get anxious and they don't want to talk about it. I know people are feeling foggy. You might be feeling foggy. Your memory might be slipping, and you don't talk about it because if you do, and this is the key point, and I want you to reflect on this, if you do start talking about it, it starts to feel real. Oh, you know what? I'm not. I don't feel any brain fog actually. I think I'm fine because you don't want to say. You know what? I do have brain fog because it makes you feel like your decline is actually happening in the current state. But luckily, that's not how it works at all. And you must move past the fear and the thought that something really bad is already happening to you. Because if you don't move past that, if you don't get rid of the fear and you don't confront your anxiety and worry about it, you cannot fix the issues. You can actually make changes and you have to confront these things and you have to talk about your brain in order to make changes. And that's why I share so much on my socials. That's why I share so much of what I'm feeling on this podcast because I have so many people messaging me weekly saying, "Hey, thank you so much for what you're sharing," because they're afraid to share their own thoughts. They need someone out there saying, "This is what I'm experiencing. This is what you can do about it." Because it's hard to come up with the way you're feeling about your brain because it's not as easy as fat loss. It's not as easy as getting rid and fixing, your blood sugar and your blood pressure directly, and that's what you're trying to fix because there's direct numbers, the weight on the scale, the way your clothes fit, the your blood pressure every time you check your blood pressure cuff, the blood sugar every time you get blood work done. Those are very tangible numbers, but your brain itself is not tangible. So it's really hard to grasp and understand. But once you understand how it works and how nutrition and diet and exercise, taking care of your stress and taking your sleep all couple in, it at least gives you other targets to look for to build this big ball of confidence about your brain. And as long as you're building this big ball of confidence and doing what you can, that allows you to release the fear. That allows you to release the anxiety. Don't you think that if you looked at these signals as just that, signals, they're not permanent, and that you knew that there was a protocol that has reversed people's decline. There's a protocol that I run, my Revitalize protocol, that is protecting people and giving them this confidence in their own brain for the future, that you would want to tackle your own brain health, because you know that the fog, the fatigue, the sleeplessness, they're all just signs that something is off currently, but you can do something about it. And that's why I got my genetic testing done, because there is a few genes that contribute to Alzheimer's disease. I wanted to know if I had them. So people might, and that's totally fine. But I personally wanted to know, because if I had those specific genes, I would go, okay, wipe my hands off. Let's get to work. And that's what I want you to do right now with your own brain, regardless of knowing your genetics, regardless of what you're feeling. Let's toss that fear out the window and let's get to prioritizing you. Because don't you think if you prioritize your own health and made your brain the forefront and your health the forefront of what you were thinking about, along with taking care of your kids, taking care of your family, that you could change everything, including your future outcome? You could change how you stayed sharp and present for your family for the rest of your life. And if that's something you want, you cannot be scared to act. You have to start making those changes now, because Alzheimer's is not a disease of late life. It's a disease of midlife that shows up later. And so the fear that is starting to increase, or this fear of starting, you have to tackle, because it is the thing that is going to increase your risk if you do not start. Drop the fear, drop your notions over your brain, and just start prioritizing you. And I promise the outcome will be the one that you want. This has been the Brain Standard Podcast. I really appreciate you listening to everything I talked about here. I appreciate you listening to me opening up about my perspective on my own brain. And I hope that you start opening up about yours. Remember, the greatest risk to your brain health is inaction driven by fear. You have the power to change your outcome, to protect your future, to be the generation that ends Alzheimer's and dementia. How cool would that be? But you have to take that first step today. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, drop a review, and share it with somebody who needs to hear this message, because I think it's really important to talk about it again and share the message that you have. And for more resources on how you can start taking control of your brain health right now, visit my website at bradleyhealthcoaching.com, and you can even book a call if you want to. Thank you so much. This has been the Brain Standard Podcast, and I'll talk to you next time.